Hello everybody, this is Cheri at djsundry.blogspot.com, and today I have a card that I am making for some friends of mine who are getting married. Now, they did a really nice glossy photo for their wedding invitation, and it was all in black and white, and then they added some red jewels to it to just kind of give it that little pop. And so I took that theme and decided I was going to make their wedding card with that. So I wanted to pull out my Artfully scent cartridge and see what I had that I could use. And what I've discovered is, since starting to clean my craft room, is I'm getting really low on wedding stamps. But I found something that I think is going to be really pretty. So I'm starting with the Artfully scent cartridge. I'm going to be using this silver embossing powder that we carry it close to my heart, and my embossing tool. Pardon the cat's noise over there. I am going to be using September's 2014 Stamp of the Month. So this is no longer available unless you can find someone who might happen to have one. I believe it's called Family is Forever, but I'm not 100% sure. But I'm going to be using this big bold love stamp on it. The paper that I'm using is ruby paper for my base, and then I really didn't want to use the chalkboard paper for the black and white, but I wanted something printed and pretty, so I went back through my stash and I found this Prima paper that had polka dots on it, so we're going to be using that. And it is called Signature, and I just had one piece of it, so I had to kind of play with it to make sure everything would fit. And then the last thing that I'm using is some silver foil paper by Recollections. And this is kind of one of those pieces of paper that you buy one sheet at a time, and it comes all wrapped in plastic because it's a really nice sheet of paper. But I wanted a little pop of silver to go with my silver embossing powder. So to make this card, we are starting on page 34, and I am making this one that says Mr. and Mrs. Now this one over here is just kind of a cutout. I'm actually coming over here and making the pop-up card. So in order to use the pop-up card, I need to grab the second book, which is the Artfully Scent book here, and it has all the assembly instructions for all of the pop-up cards, because they are a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to use that, and bear with me because I've not practiced on this card at all. So let's start by pulling out my little score pal. And the first thing that I'm going to use is the ruby. I've already cut it, and this is all cut at 7 inches. And I know you can't probably see it on the camera because it's really tiny, but there are these little tiny tick marks, super tiny tick marks. And they're right at the 5-inch mark. And so that's going to be our first fold, is right there. So let me grab my better bone folder. Like I said, I've been doing some cleaning and stuff, and things are, now I have to find everything. So we're going to start with that, and we'll just fold that. Now I should have folded it the opposite direction because now I have a little bit of crackage, but that's okay. So that is the inside of our card, just like that. So in fact, you know what I might do? I think I will fold it the other way. There we go. So there is our card, and for now we're just going to set that aside. Now I know that I have this crack because I folded it backwards, but it won't show, so it's not really a big deal. So I'm going to set that aside, and now we're going to pull out our book, because this is the one where I really need to pay attention. So this is the piece that I have already cut out that says Mr., and then there's a big ampersand and Mrs. And I know you can't really see all of that yet, but you will. There are some little... I don't think you can really see it on this side either, but there's like some perforations here and here on the ampersand, and that's where we are going to actually do our folding. So I'm going to start with this first one. Again, that's right at, not quite at 5 inches, it's just a little bit less than 5 inches. It's like 5 1/8, or 4 7/8, I guess. But I'm going to put it on the 5 mark just so I have something to line it up with. Make sure it's straight there. And I'm going to go down to the and, or the ampersand, and then I'm going to go through that part of the ampersand, through this part of the ampersand. Everywhere where there's a perforation, I'm going to fold. And then we'll continue all the way down to the bottom. So I don't know how well you can see that, but that's all folded there. And then we're going to do the same right here. I just need to find a groove to put it in, and we're going to do a little mark there. And that should be, I think, nope, there's another one right here for this part of the ampersand right here. There's a little fold mark, and I think the rest of those will come out okay. So there we have our little fold. Nope, there's one more I missed. Right here at the, right there. I know that's really hard to see with the paper that I'm using, but it will all show together. Now when we look at the fold, it tells us which directions to fold. So this middle part here, we're going to fold in. Here and here, we're going to fold in just like that. We're going to start with that, and then I'm going to go back and look, and so this part is going to get folded this way out and this way out. And I don't want to fold my whole card, just kind of that ampersand part there. And then this one is going to go out as well. So it looks kind of a bit of a mess, but it's going to come together. So now what we're going to do, so see, when you fold it, well, we'll be able to see better when we get it attached. So to get that all attached, what I want to do now is I'm going to line it up, and there's going to be a little bit of the red edging around it, which is perfect. And so what I want to pay special attention to is where I'm going to put my glue. So when I fold it, when they open it, we are going to want it to come out like that. So I'm going to just kind of fold it and make sure that my fold marks are all nice and straight, and that will help me know where I want to put my glue. So I'm going to want to put my glue basically everywhere but on the ampersand. You can see that coming together. So I'm going to turn this over, and I'm going to grab something a little easier to work with than my ATG, because I'm going to be using quite a lot of glue. Now in the picture it shows you actually using glue, and I may in some parts of it use glue, but I am not a big glue fan. It just makes a bit of a mess. But there are some places where it's going to be better if I use glue because we want it to stick down. So I'm going to start by going around the edges of the card with my little tape runner here. Now, in case you're wondering, no, I am not replacing my ATG gun. In fact, I just bought a bunch of refills for it. But for the purpose of the video, it makes it a little bit easier for you to see if that big old thing isn't in the way. So I've gone around the edges with that. I'm going to just add some extra. If you're shy about using adhesive, a pop-up card is probably not a good idea for you because you need quite a bit of adhesive. Now I'm going to grab my Tombow Mono multi-glue, and I am just going to put a thin line around those places that I need to adhere. And I want to be careful because I don't want to get too much, because I don't want it popping through. Even though it will dry clear, I just don't want too much coming through. I just don't like the way the finished card looks when too much is popping through. So you see I'm just going around the places that I'm going to want stuck. Now, as much adhesive as I'm putting on this card, you're going to have to be really careful about when you place it down the first time, which will be a bit of a challenge for me because I don't want to have to, it's not going to shift very easily for me. Okay, and then this part is actually going to be down as well. And I know with the print and with the colors and everything, it's kind of hard to see how I know where to go, but I just remember that the ampersand outside, or the ampersand inside, is what's going to pop up. So what's going to be adhered to the card base itself is where I'm putting the extra glue. Okay, So now comes the part. I'm going to make sure that's all like that. And then we're going to try to adhere it down straight, which can be a bit of a challenge. There we go. I'm just going back through. I think I need to replace my Cricut blade because it did not cut this paper well, although then the next thing I cut just fine, so I'm not sure if it may just be that the mat wasn't adhered very well. And that's going to go down like that. So you can see we've got everything down that needs to be down, and then we will fold it back on top of itself, and now I'm going to go really firmly over the edge there. Just like that. So now when you open it up, it pops out, Mr. and Mrs. Whoops, sorry about that. Didn't mean to get it off the camera. So we've got the Mr. and Mrs. popping out. So when they open it, it will pop up. So it takes a little bit of folding practice, but it's not difficult. Now remember what I said about how I don't like to use wet glue because it leaves a mess, and I see that underneath it is leaving a mess. So I need to be really careful to get that all off. In fact, I will go back once it dries a little bit, because with the Tombow Mondo multi-glue, it's a two-way glue. If you adhere it when it's wet, it creates a permanent bond. If you adhere it when it's already started to dry, it creates a semi-permanent adhesive. And so what will happen is when I close the card, it will stick if I don't go back through and remove all of that. So I'll have to go back through and remove it all. So that's the inside of our card. And then I will show you how we're going to do the outside of the card. So I cut another piece of this paper, and you can see it kind of had this filigreed edge around it, but I didn't have that much of the paper to play with. So what I want to do is I want to emboss on this. And the inside's not quite done. We'll come back and finish that off. But we're going to do the outside while that's drying a little bit more. So this is where we're pulling our stamp set. This is the Family is Forever stamp set. And the love, just like that. And I've already got my stamp all ready. I'm going to have my Versamark ink here. And I had to order a refill of my ink because I've had this ink pad for years and it's starting to wear out. So I have my little wipe here. I want to get all the excess off my stamp itself. A Versamark pad, if you haven't worked with that, it stays wet longer so that you can emboss. That's kind of what it's designed to do. And then it goes on clear. So when I put it down here, it will be very difficult to see, or you won't be able to see it at all. But that is not a problem. Because now what we're going to do is I just grabbed a coffee filter here. I don't remember where I learned that trick. I learned it from somewhere. Grabbed a coffee filter, and then I'm going to just be pretty generous with my embossing powder because it all can go right back in. And then you still can't see it, but you should be able to see it once that silver is heated. It should be bright and shiny. So as you, I'm off the camera a little bit here, but as you can, I put it all right back in. Very little waste. A little bit fell out, but not much at all. So set that aside. And then here we go. So we've kind of got, so what you do is you just heat that until the grain has smoothed out and melted into the paper. So there we have our love. And boy, we see smoke going everywhere. That one gets hot. This is the very first time I've used this one because my old one melted on the inside and I was afraid it was a fire hazard. So there we have that. You can see that love coming through. And so now I'm going to adhere that to the front of the card. So I'll grab my adhesive. And there we have just a simple love. Now I'm going to clean up that extra glue on the inside of the card, and when we come back we will finish up the card. Okay, so while I was gone, I went ahead and finished off the card just to make it a little bit quicker. And I really like the way it turned out. So this is that silver foil paper wedding rings that I was telling you about that I cut out, and those go right over the Mr. and Mrs. Now with using all of the black printed paper, I needed a place to be able to write on the card. So I just cut a really small square, which will give me plenty of room to write a short little message to the people that will be getting it. Now the red ampersand is also part of the card. It's the icon feature. And again, you cut it all at the same size. This was all cut at 7 inches because that's how it coordinates. So if you wanted to do it differently on real dial size, if you wanted something bigger, you could do that, but just remember it won't all fit together if you don't cut it all at the same size. So at 7 inches, this was all made to go together. And so there's the inside of our card. Now what did I do on the outside of our card? Unfortunately, I discovered that I did not have any red bling. I had some, but I didn't have, I have these and they're a little bit bigger than what I wanted, but I didn't have any red, just single rhinestones. So I went back and I found some Recollections that was similar to this one that I have here. Kind of hard focusing with the glare, but what I did is I just added it in a couple of different places. I cut it apart and I added a couple little rhinestones above the love, and then coming down, and it almost gets lost in there, but it does provide just that extra little bit of bling. There's a flourish that comes down out around the flourishes at the top of the card. So there we have this very pretty simple card for my friends, and it was all made using the Artfully scent cartridge. So thanks so much for stopping by today, and remember, take some time to enjoy the little things. Have a great day. Bye.